Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
It's nothing special, and arguably pointless without the pics, but I'm going to post it to keep the thread bumped. Member of forum back in about 2005. Everyone is aged around 14 to 25 and we know each other IRL because we all go to the same club. It's a music forum for a really niche genre that's played locally. Fewer than 20 members are from further than about 30 miles away. Despite it being niche and local, it's surprisingly popular. There's a few hundred people browsing the forums at any one time. Anyway, there's non-music forums for things like just general chat, hobbies, computers, that kind of thing. Go in the computer section one day and some member has bought a new webcam. This is 2005, so it's not UHD 4K like it is now. It's the kind that are grainy and the motion is choppy. He fucks around with it to get used to it. Says he set it up in his living room to try out the camera, not video camera, static camera function. Has some little meme on it where it takes 4 pics, one every 0.5 seconds or so. Sets it up running. Leaves the room because his dad shouts of him. Comes back and it's still running. Stops it and checks the pics. Posts them. See him at computer. Him walking out of the room. Then there's just the room on its own. You can see the door, window, and a clothes horse. Majority of the pics are just the empty room. Then on 2 of the pics there's this shape that sort of looks like a flying fox, but smaller, totally black, with undefined blurry edges. Just hovering in the middle of the room in front of the clothes horse. Then it's gone and the pics resume with him walking back in and sitting down. Asks anyone if they have any idea what it is. Tell him to GTFO. A couple of weeks later he mentions he's moving and never posts again. As I said, it's shit without the pics, but it was really bizarre. The worst part is that I had the pics saved on an old computer and the forum only just closed a little while ago, so now I have no chance of ever finding them again.
Saw pic related in a previous Greentext thread. It was archived by the time I read it, but it struck a chord. I worked at a little shithole bar for almost 7 years. Over that time, I heard numerous stories from customers about an empty field next door. I'll Greentext to suit the thread. Working in a shithole bar. Next to the bar sits a large empty field. Bar is in a residential area, so people walk there all the time. They have to pass the field on the way. Every now and then, a customer will tell me a story about the field. Stories are all kind of different, but they always involve hearing something they can't explain. I take these stories with a grain of salt because after all, this is a bar, and most of these people are usually a little drunk when they tell me these stories. But one day, one of my favorite regulars and I are chit-chatting. He's a real down-to-earth redneck kind of guy. The last person I'd expect to hear something weird from. But he says he was leaving the bar one night. He was passing the field when he heard someone splashing through the puddles in the grass. It had recently rained. He looked. Nobody there, but he can see the puddles splashing violently. Water is jumping straight up like someone is stomping the water. Kind of spoopy on its own. But then he says that a few weeks ago he was walking by the field and heard something like a bull trotting around. That's exactly how he described it. Not a horse, a bull. Big heavy hoofbeats. He said it sounded like some big animal was stomping around back and forth. The guy said he got chills and took off for home. This guy's a told old dude. So the fact that he admitted that alone made me believe him. Anyway, like I said, he wasn't the only one who mentioned something like this. That's another reason why I kind of believe it. I'll keep this short. Another customer tells me he was walking home once. He hears something in the field. Unlike the other guy, this customer didn't like the sound to anything. Couldn't even describe it. He just said it was the weirdest sound I ever heard. So he paused to listen. Everything seemed totally silent except for this weird sound. No wind, no leaves rustling, nothing. Then the sound stops and the man hears something else. Sounds like footsteps walking towards him from the far side of the field. He listens to them approaching for a moment before noping the fuck out and rushing home. He never saw a soul. Then I've heard another story similar to his. A few different people have said they've heard what sounded like someone walking alongside them in the grass. They'll just be walking home, and they'll hear footsteps in the grass next to them, following them. Anyway, I never heard anything myself, and it's not like this was a regular occurrence. But I did hear multiple people mention stories like these over many years.
I'll bite. Every time I get a fever, a specific nightmare haunts me. Shit probably started when I was 5. Had some sort of smallpox, me good now. First I'm in a forest, sounds of screaming and battle. I try to run away from the chaos, but always at the end logs fucking fall from an incline and everything blacks out. Phase fucking one of the boss fight. I usually become conscious at this point of time, but I cannot move my body. When I fall asleep, a low roar intensifies. I hear it from the back of my head, maybe important. I don't know. Phase 2. I find myself on a hall. Scarlet-colored tapestry with gold trimming. I don't know what style it's called, but it has a lot of curves, royal-looking, and thick lines. But the scale of the hall. It's fucking enormous, like you can fit 10 stadiums without even touching the ceiling. At the end of the hall is a throne. With every step I take towards it, I feel dread. The walk feels forever, but the dread increases steadily, so progress, yay. A few hundred paces I can see who is sitting there. Some sort of queen, corpse white skin, long flowy robes, silver crown. The body morphs into a lot of shapes, but the figure looks vaguely human, or at least tries to be human. The head has a mouth, a pair of ears, and black horns that look like antlers. No eyes and nose. The more I come forward, the more the dread piles up to the point of tears in and out of the dream. The queen speaks, but I always wake up before I can hear it. Every fucking time I get a fever, I get the same nightmare. The amount of shit I got just for being sick motivated me to increase my resistance to flu and summer fevers. I rarely get sick now, but till this day I never liked large halls and big rooms in general. I sleep in a small bedroom and I can never sleep without my back close to the wall.
Probably 10 years old at the time. I've always slept well. Even on Christmas morning my parents would have to wake me up. But one night I remember very clearly to this day. I woke up and had a sense that something was wrong. It was this awful feeling of dread and fear, which had never happened before. I laid there in bed, staring around my room in the dark, and noticed that my door to my room was shut. This was strange because it was always open every night. As I was staring at it, I suddenly saw movement. I looked over, and there was a figure the size of a full-grown man, and it was clinging to my wall opposite my bed. I froze. It was crawling around on the wall, pausing here and there. I went to church a lot as a kid, so the only thing I could think to do was to try and be brave and pray. So, I said out loud, and I remember my voice was quaking. I was so upset. "I'm not scared of you. Get out." I've never in my life believed in anything supernatural, but that shit was real. I started praying the only thing I could think of, which was the Lord's Prayer. Over and over slowly. The thing crawled down the wall and hunched over. It pressed itself against my door like it wanted out. It made these awful desperate poses against the door. At this point I'd been watching it for probably 5 minutes solid since this all began. It was corporeal the entire time, had a clear and rigid outline, but looked like it was made out of smoke. No face, no clothes, human-like in appearance. It never even acknowledged me. As it was pressed, spasming against my door, suddenly it was just gone. I've never seen anything else like it. Never had anything else weird happen. And while I don't believe in goofy shit, I really saw something I can't explain. I was so scared I refused to go back to sleep. Once the sun was coming up and I could hear birds, I started to relax a little. I wanted to leave the room, but I wasn't going to get out of bed and go to that door. I remember being awake for hours afterward just contemplating what the hell happened. I can say that years later I mentioned seeing strange figures in the house to my mom. She's stoic. When I told her, she started picking at the edge of her lip, and basically said, "I've seen strange things in the hall." That hall is the one outside my room. I didn't ask more about it at the time, probably because it freaked me out to hear her say something like that. I never had any other occurrence in the house, frankly. I did have a really stupid thing happen at an old hotel once. The Tutwiler in downtown Birmingham, Alabama. I was just traveling for business at the time. This is so stupid, but I got woken up in the middle of the night by beeping. I went out into the little living area of my room that had a sofa, TV, fridge, all that. I looked over and the microwave was dialing itself. Frankly, I was super fucking angry. In my 30s at the time and tired from constant travel. But this fucking microwave was dialing in cooking time, then hitting the clear button. Over and over and over again. I went over to unplug it because I was thinking what a junk piece of shit it was. I tried to unplug it, but the cord was purposefully trapped under a little wooden cubby thing the microwave and fridge were on to prevent theft, I guess. It stopped beeping even though I couldn't unplug it. I turned the lights off, went back to bed, and it started up again. To be honest, I was just pissed off, so I pulled the bedroom door and went to sleep. It was totally fine in the morning. I told the receptionist that they needed to replace the fucking thing as I was checking out. That was when he told me that the place was haunted, and that people stayed often to experience it. Dumb, but real.
Dad was in the military and Mom lived with him in an Air Force base in the Amazon. Internal conflict was at its peak, so planes could only arrive once every 2 weeks depending on climate. Mom's like 7th month of pregnancy, so belly is noticeable. Dad pilots intelligence aircraft, so he is out all nights flying. Both my mom and dad used to live in a small room, but because of the pregnancy they asked for a full apartment. Since the airbase was really big, it had a bunch of houses and a 3-story building with small apartments. Also, because it was isolated from almost everything, power cut off every day at 7 p.m. Usually it gets dark like at 5:30 to 6 p.m. here. They move into one of the apartments on the last floor. Since Dad is working all the time, some soldiers help my mom do the moving. Mom notices that some of the soldiers were acting strange but wipes it off. That night she hears knocks in the bedroom's window. Asks who it is. "Onions yo, aquí estoy." "It's me, I'm here." Panics the fuck out and asks again. Same response. She starts crying and praying. She says that she suddenly couldn't pronounce words, like her tongue was tangling. She leaves the house, rushes down the stairs, and people notice her screams and rush out to help. Next day she tells my dad everything. He tells her maybe it has something to do with pregnancy stress and nightmares. That night the same thing happens again. "Who is it?" "It's me, here I am." Mom had bought a flashlight but the batteries somehow were not working. Rushes out of the house, people notice, etc. Next day she goes and talks to the Sobandera. In a lot of countries in South America, witches and sorceress used to live within communities taking the roles of medics or priests. Sobanderas are medics that specialize on herbs, potions and massages to alleviate illness. The Sobandera tells her that there was money and indigenous belongings in the apartment. Every military base, even to this day I believe, has a priest. Most of people in Colombia are Catholics, so it helps soldiers and communities near the bases. She goes to the priest, asks the priest to pour holy water on the apartment. It's a common practice when you move somewhere to sanctify it. Priest agrees, tells her that he will be there before it gets dark. Mom gets to the apartment, falls asleep. Wake up next day, surprised that she slept for so long and the priest did not show up. Meets the priest. He tells her he went to the apartment and she was standing by the window looking up but never answered nor opened the door. Mom tells everything to Dad. He tells her it's better for her to leave the base for the time and come back after the child, me, was born. Mom agrees. She goes back to her mom's and I was born there. Dad was transferred to a major city shortly after I was born, so my mom never came back to the military base. Fast forward 15 years, Dad's still in the military, divorced, I live with him. He was transferred back to that base, but this time as the director of the whole military base. I move with Mom, still travel to the base almost all of my vacations. One time I arrive and there is this old lady walking near my house. Recognizes me, calls me by my name, asks about my mom. Figure it's someone who met me when I was a baby and I don't remember, so I just answer kindly. We chat for a bit, tells me her name, leaves. Tell Dad about the old lady and he tells me she was the Sobandera. Still creeps me out how she could recognize me and knew my name even though we hadn't met before and my dad never spoke with her.
Be me. Late for work. Mumble to myself, I need my keys, to the tune of Little Dark Age. Clearly hear keys jingling loudly from the closet with the furnace in it. There's a box with spare keys in it there. It also has the brooms and other utility shit basically. I'm in the kitchen, this room is literally 6 feet away. Shout, "Bro, give me my fucking keys, I thought my little brother was fucking with me." No reply. Keys jingle again, much louder, like someone is shaking them. I stomp in the room while promising to beat his ass. It's empty. Go back to the kitchen. My keys are on the counter where I was eating breakfast, right next to my plate. Run upstairs with keys and find my brother still asleep, out like a light. He calls me a schizo when I explain I heard the keys jingling. It was fucking weird, I was awake doing homework before this, so I know it wasn't some dream state. I suspect it to be gnomes, as I've had other items go missing and reappear like this, so have my family members, but they are not superstitious.
Okay, here we go. I never believed in any supernatural nonsense, but this one thing have changed that for me. I studied history on my uni, and we were obliged to take one archaeology practice during studies. Me and my friends have decided to go to ruins of old Teutonic castle in Masuri. There was place for 6 people. We thought it will be chill out because there are lakes and shit around, so it will be 4 hours work during day and partying during night. The guy that was a local manager for the thing gave us 2 rooms inside. Conditions were shitty, but it was free. One other guy that worked there said that the castle ruins are haunted, but he said it in a laughing manner, so we thought it was bullshit for tourists. As I said, I never believed in such things. And there were these things happening, small and like you always had doubt if it isn't something you or other person did and forgot. Like electric teapot would suddenly turn on and no one touched it. Once during night, we was woken up by a sound, windows starting, my computer turned on. Inside building there was a constant lack of signal on mobiles. The lights were switching on and off. All of this could be rationalized. You could always find explanation that didn't involve supernatural things, but the amount of them was really creepy. We were there for a month. After a week we got used to it. We were joking like when a teapot turned on someone asked, "Hey ghost, you also want some instant ramen?" Generally, you got used to it, the weird noises in the night. Well, it is an old building, so it makes noises. The electrical appliances turning on and off? Well, the electrical installation was last renovated in '80s by drunk communist workers who didn't care. Really scary stuff started 5 days to our departure. At the beginning there was a guy that also stayed with us for the night to control if we could be trusted and won't break anything. After 2 weeks he decided that it is okay for us to stay alone. 5 nights till departure, there were 6 of us, 4 guys in one room, 2 girls in other. Around 11 in the evening one of the girls comes screaming into our room asking who have thrown all of her shit out of her bag and that there was some sort of makeup shit in glass bottle that is now broken. Nobody went into that room except her. The other girl was out for 4 hours on the shore of the lake with one guy. The 3 of us were sitting and drinking beer in the small kitchen and for at least 2 hours no one went upstairs. We went back with her to the room to check what happened. And there were 3 beds flipped over. No way that the girl did it. She said that the beds were normal 5 minutes before when she was there. We were sure that there was no one beside us there. All of us were really scared at that point. An hour after it the other girl came back with the last guy. They met us outside and pale. We told them what happened and decided to call the manager in the morning, also to talk with the other people working there. Girls were really scared, so we decided that everyone will sleep in one room and went back. During the night we have not slept. All night long you could hear steps and rhythmical hits. Seriously, it was the most scary night in my life. I remember that from 2 to 5 I held a reproduction of a Teutonic sword in my hand just in case. And in the morning there was the most creepy thing, a big block of red bricks, that weighed more than a ton, that we dug out few days before was moved like 20 meters. No way a person could do that. There was no signs of it being dragged. There was no way a heavy-duty lifter could do it. We would have heard that. After that night we decided not to sleep in the castle and found a small hotel instead for the last 4 days.
Been itching for more Greentext threads. I don't have a great story, but it's a small contribution nonetheless, and it's yet to be told. This story happened to an old girlfriend of mine from years ago. Story is written from her perspective.
Into the evening, around 9 p.m. have Friends, American 90s sitcom, running on the TV. Autoplay before Netflix asked if you were still watching every 20 minutes, would just keep playing. Talking to friend about whatever on phone. Talking about something unrelated when friend out of nowhere says there's a monster next to you. Wouldn't be a big deal but mildly concerned because friend has seemed to have a sensitivity to paranormal things and have known him since beginning of high school. Know he's a joker but not a liar. He is also an apathetic prick when he wants to be, fucking scorps. Brush it off as friend being dumb but still curious. Confused. I ask what he's taking about. He plays it off as nothing. Tell him he's dumb, ha ha, okay whatever. Wave. Shortly after friend says he has to go. Bye, click. Leaves as abrupt as it reads. Feel uneasy after phone call for a minute but tired, so I lay down. Dad plays locally in a band and, at the time, had sets that end a bit late into the evening. Wake up an hour or 2 later alone on the couch but something feels strange. The television is completely silent. No, I fell asleep with the volume on, listening to it while I dozed off. Stare at TV in brief confusion while I'm coming out of sleep fog. Seconds later Dad walks in through the door. TV kicks on full 100% volume, scaring the fuck out of both of us. Dad yells at me for watching the TV too loud after fighting off heart attack from walking through the door. Run to TV to turn it down. Go to bed shortly after. TV volume was on low before falling asleep. Remote was lost years ago, so it didn't get bumped or muted while sleeping, as it did not exist.
There is literally no reason for her to make this story up, and I, myself, believe it to be a truthful account.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.